A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 123rd episode of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. More than a year ago, in April 2020, when the pandemic had just started and schools were shutting down, we at Notebook felt that it was our duty to put together a platform where educationists and educators could come and share their views, their thoughts, discuss various problems, various aspects of school education, and arrive at common solutions. Little did we know that more than a year later, more than 122 episodes later, I would be welcoming all of you once again. For the love and appreciation that you've shown to this particular platform, we remain in your debt. Today, we look at a very interesting topic, class size. PTR or pupil teacher ratio is something that almost every educationist would know a lot about. It's common knowledge that given enough number of students, classes start becoming ineffective. However, there are other aspects to it. When you have students sitting in a class, there is also peer-to-peer learning that goes on. How do you ensure diversity in small classes? How do you ensure the economics of the school survive very small class sizes? Today, we seek to discuss these issues and many more around this particular topic. Our first speaker on this topic today is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Burrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. He qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He's also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and we at Notebook are privileged to have him as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for being here today. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Subayu, and a very good evening to you, Achin, Abhishek, and all those in the Notebook office in Calcutta, Gagori, and all the rest. Today's topic is one of the most frustrating aspects of school education that I have ever encountered, and which plays a large part in the quality of education imparted. One talks of teacher training, classroom management, teaching methodology, syllabus, discipline, admissions. But another big factor which aids learning is the atmosphere and setting in which learning takes place. The shape, size, and color scheme of a classroom, the sound quality, the desks and chairs, the light, the air circulation, the glare coming from the outside, all plays an important role in effective classroom interaction. And in many schools that I have visited, the classroom and the number of kids crammed into it are the last priority on the list of the management. Now, when one talks of class size, one must also look and link it with the number of students, with the number of periods a teacher teaches in a week, in order to factor in the load of a teacher. So you can have a very small class and many periods, which would be equal to a fewer periods and a large number of classes. Large classes mean more correction and more stress, and therefore less time for preparing the next day's lesson. Also, we need to take in the age group as a factor, and also the intellectual levels of the students. Now, when I was at Doon, we used to have a thing called streaming, which was actually dividing the class. Let's say class 8 had 4 sections into, it was divided according to ability levels. Now, this may have certain issues and people find this not a very palatable way of dividing, but the importance of it was that a teacher could teach the brighter team differently than the slightly weaker students. And with weaker students, you need to repeat more, you need to go slower, you need to go into detail. And we found, we gave it up subsequently, but I found that you could direct your teaching and focus your teaching on the ability of the students. Also, we had many fewer in our classes. Now, teaching weaker sections needs less load. So if I was teaching a weaker stream, I would have less periods in a week. Teachers teaching senior classes also have to have a slight lesser load. And when you have KG and nursery and the younger kids, sometimes you might have two teachers in a class to handle all that noise and confusion. Now there's an optimum weekly load that a teacher will have to put in. If it's too much per week, it reduces effectiveness. Too little also sends wrong messages to the entire staff and may reduce the effectiveness of the time, school time. Now, in most schools, the load, the bogey of a day school is about 25 to 28 periods. But in a boarding school, which is a 24/7 establishment, you might have lesser, 22 to 25 periods, with a housemaster or a head of department having just 15 to 18 periods a week. Now, I have worked in school where there's been up to 40 to 45 in a class, but that was way back in the 70s and 80s. And that was considered a big number, especially when it came to correction time. Then, of course, when I moved to Doon, I was pleasantly surprised to find that the largest class was about 20 to 25. And in senior sections, you might even have 10 to 15. I once had a senior geography class where I had as little as 3 students, which is also not a very good thing, because when you have fewer students in a class, there is less interaction and sharing of information. And therefore, a rule was made subsequently that you cannot offer a subject unless you have at least 5 in a class. Now, if you have 3 in a class, it's almost like private tuition, and there's hardly any interaction amongst those students. Now, when I did some consultancy work after I retired, I was absolutely shocked to see the cramped classrooms in the school I tried to help. There was no room for a teacher to even walk down the little spaces between the classroom. And this is very important. The teacher needs to be able to reach every student. So after a bit of teaching, it is imperative when the teacher sets work that he needs or she needs to go down and tend to the students who are having problems, the weaker students. This is where I think managements fail. And to top it all, there was noise from the traffic outside. It was 90% humidity. There was a lot of noise. And my heart actually went out to these teachers who are trying to teach and pass and get kids to pass exams with almost 60 in a class, and leave alone the second row. How can he ever reach the last row? But this is the plight of so many of our inner city schools, where maximizing profits is the main motive. In schools that have many branches and more affluent schools that are trying to finance the poorer of their schools, they may have many sections. I know DPS in Delhi has up to, I think, section H, because they have the space. They can build upwards, build laterally. So you might have fewer people in the class, but you have many, many sections, which means more teachers on the roll. Now, without changing the area of a class, sometimes they push in more desks when more admissions have to be taken in. And this is terrible, really terrible. Now, quality education means that there's a variety of teaching strategies and styles that have to be put into place. Not only the chalk and talk lesson, because when you have a large class of 60 and you can't reach the second row, the only way to teach is lecturing. You write it, you speak, you shout it out, and the kids take your notes down, only to regurgitate this in exams. But when you're talking about discursive or discussion methods, or the flipped classroom, or project-based learning, this requires a much more one-to-one interaction with students. And so if you have 60 in a class, in a cramped classroom, as I said, high humidity, no ACs, poor sound quality, traffic outside, how can you do anything else except a chalk and talk lesson? No wonder that these schools have poor discipline and poor classroom management. And this is a real big problem when it comes to knowing your students. When I had 20 in a class, I knew them very well. And being a housemaster, I knew their allergies, I knew their parents' details, I knew their phone numbers. I could get in touch with their parents. There was so much I could do to prop up the student. But when you're talking 60, 65 in a class, let alone knowing allergies or where they come from, they may not even know the students' names. Now you compare a class of 20 to a class of 70. You could do, as I said, a variety of lessons. You could devote your attention to students. And when you devote your attention to students, it's easier to assess them. Because assessment is not just how many marks they get in the exam. Assessment means how they interact in class. Do they prepare their lesson? Do they talk? Do they bring in new material? Do they work as a team? Do they take initiative, or they're sitting back? Does he read outside the lesson? So there's so many factors where you can actually assess a student if you have smaller numbers in a class. Now, I've seen many schools set up by educationists, philanthropists, that start with the great idea of having small classes, class size of say 30 at the most. What happens is that as the school develops and builds a name for itself, you have people clamoring at the doors for admissions. Now the lure of money, and also in an attempt to serve the people who want admissions, the classroom starts to fill up. Now the class might have been designed for 30, but very soon you got 50 in the class. And especially in inner city schools, there's a lot of pressure on the headmaster and the principal to take in more and more students. And what happens is the quality of education drops. There's a demand to accommodate more students. There's also a need to generate more income so that you can pay teacher better and build your infrastructure. So these schools might have started with great vision, but the lure of money and the pressure put on by local bigwigs that want admission for their children put these schools way back. So they start off with 500 or 600 or 1,000, and they land up at 3,000. And there's no place on the playing field. A child can't get his tuck shop, food in time, and it leads to a lot of problems. Now, the problem is that teachers have absolutely no say with the management, with the promoters, the owners, about their stress levels. I know schools abroad have people coming into schools and actually analyzing teacher stress levels. And their report to the governors is very, very definitive. And this can be taken up legally. But in our country, teachers with large classrooms suffer a lot of stress. They're over pressurized. They're underprepared. And this is all because of large classrooms. I don't know where the solution will lie. There are only a few good schools that have the optimum 20 to 30. I think it's a problem that we all face. And with that, Shabayu, I hope I started the ball rolling. May the experts take over now. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for that. When you say you let the experts take over now, I honestly wonder what that means. But ladies and gentlemen, to bring in some more expertise from a different walk of life, our next speaker is Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session. After a gap, I think last week, we had no sessions. As all of you are aware, at Notebook, we always give very high priority to Together for Education sessions. And unless circumstances are compelling, we never ever want to miss them. However, as you're aware, during last week, we had the final rounds of Notebook Ignite, hosted in collaboration with IIM Calcutta Innovation Park. Really wonderful performance put up by your students. They made us very, very proud. Undoubtedly, when we were going through these presentations and also the discussions that we had with IIM faculty, they're pleasantly surprised with the quality of presentation made by school children. Hats off. And I think full credit goes to educators like you for mentoring them. Indeed, your contribution is really beyond words. Today we have a very important and interesting topic. I think Burrett sir gave a great start, and with the experts in the panel, I would just like to touch upon a few aspects and post that. Today I'd like to listen more from your practical experience, real life scenarios, case studies. So undoubtedly that despite there being a large number of articles, write-ups on class size effects and how and what is the correlation with academic achievements, but you'll find very few studies which are credible enough and relevant enough so as to rely on them. I guess the most influential and credible study of class size reduction is the student-teacher achievement ratio, or the way the mnemonic is referred to as STAR, student-teacher achievement ratio, which was conducted in Tennessee during late 1980s. In this study, students and teachers were randomly assigned to a small class. So on one hand, they took a regular class, which I think the average was around 22 students. And on the other hand, they took a class of average around 15 students. So from 22, you reduce it to 15. So reduction of 7 students. And this large reduction in class size, because it's almost more than 30% reduction, right? And it has found out that student achievement increased by an amount equivalent to about 3 additional months of schooling 4 years later. So the impact was sizable, the impact was material, the impact was deep. We couldn't deny it. So I think this was the most credible study which has ever been done in terms of class size reduction. Later point of time, there are various other studies as well, which are, I'm sure many of you are aware. Studies of class size have been conducted in Israel, in Texas, and they also found benefits of smaller classes. Although the gains associated with smaller classes were not as substantial or as material as what we heard in the earlier study, the STAR study. Some other studies have shown mixed effects. Studies have been conducted in California, in Florida. Some of them have shown mixed effects. Some of them have shown no effects. That even after reduction of class size, we have seen students' achievements actually didn't vary. Now, because the pool of credible studies is small and the individual studies differ in terms of setting, method, grade, magnitude of class variation, so I guess the conclusion is tentative. Of course, so when we discuss about aspects which are very apparent, very gross, as I think some wonderful examples that Burrett sir gave, I think naturally those are no-brainers. Of course, these are action points in which I think as a civil society, we need to work together to ensure better future for our children. But I'm saying beyond the point, because we also need to understand that trying to fit in a square peg in a round hole always doesn't work. So studies that we are discussing about in developed countries and vis-a-vis what we see in developing countries, the ground realities are very, very different. So when we discuss about reduction beyond a point, so here we are not discussing about numbers like 45, 50. We're discussing about numbers like 22 and 15. So does it actually help beyond a point? It appears that very large class size reductions, like if we reduce around 7, 10 students, etc., can have significant long-term effects on student achievement and other meaningful outcomes. Now, these effects seems to be more material, more substantial when introduced in earlier grades, because that's when you actually need all the attention. And for students who actually need help, who come from less advantaged backgrounds, first generation learners, etc. So naturally, considering the fact that at times there are some practical constraints on the ground, budgetary constraint, resource constraint. So there's always a cost benefit test associated with any policy that we want to implement, and that's very practical and logical. So the question is, does this policy have any positive effect? And I think if we go a step further, it's not only whether this is good or bad, it's not a binomial decision, yes or no, but rather I'll put it like this, that is this policy the most productive use of our resources? Is the impact material enough, substantial enough? Assuming even the largest class size effect, such as the STAR result that we discussed, where we saw huge, more than 3 months of schooling, additional schooling, like for each child. Class size mandates must still be considered in the context of alternative uses of resources. That can we really put our resources in some other areas which are more useful? Now, but undoubtedly, having said that, if you look at practical aspects, there are benefits with regard to the kind of attention that an educator can give to an individual child, handholding, and why only academics? If you look at extracurriculars, if you look at other facilities, be it sports, be it with different activities, etc. So the kind of attention that a child gets, naturally it varies hugely. Now, in settings where at times the law mandates that this is the maximum class size. Now, I think implementation is the key, because we also need to understand that it's not only about getting something on pen and paper. How do we actually implement it? And is the implementation being done on the ground? And what are the effects? What are the challenges? So I guess this undoubtedly is one of the most practical issues when we discuss. I think as Burrett was also mentioning, that there are instances, there are practical challenges on the ground. Now the question is that there are different circumstances. Say for example, we were discussing about students in earlier grade, and vis-a-vis what we see in middle school, vis-a-vis what we see in higher classes. Also, I was reading about some studies wherein they have compared between science subjects and non-science subjects, and how the impact of class size varies in terms of teaching subjects like social science, and in terms of teaching subjects where there's an element of practical classes, laboratory work, more hand holding, and what the effects are. Also with regard to children who come from, as I told you, as we were discussing, from less advantaged backgrounds, wherein they need more hand holding, first generation learners, etc. So I guess these are very important aspects that needs to be considered. And then again, I was going through some studies wherein the findings are little different. So there's a study which was conducted by Temple University, and the finding of the study shows that it's not that small is always great. There are some contrary results as well. So it encourages educational researchers to look deeper at the effect of class size on student success, and also the effect of peers as well as teaching method. Because we are not only discussing about education within the confines of classroom, We are also discussing about education in the school corridors, education that comes from peer-to-peer engagement, peer-to-peer discussions. That also is equally important. The other aspect, which practically is undoubtedly very important, is that in today's time, when schools are closed for more than a year now, almost 1.5 years, in some places, we are fortunate schools are gradually reopening. But then again, when online classes are going on, classes over Zoom, various platforms. So what is the effect of class size? I'd like to hear this from our esteemed panelists. That actually, what is the effect of this? Because I was going through a study which shows some implications of online classes, COVID-19 era instruction. The fact that now classes are being conducted online, is it giving more flexibility to teachers? I guess so. Because what happens is, I think up to a large extent, although it has its own unique set of challenges, because especially in lower classes, especially in junior classes, being able to communicate, being able to connect with students online, undoubtedly is a huge Herculean task. It's not easy. But having said that, I think up to some extent, teachers can concentrate completely on the teaching aspect, especially in senior classes. Because in classroom, I'm sure there are a lot of other aspects also that the teacher needs to take care of or continuously monitor, etc. So this is something which I really look forward to and listen to and hear from our esteemed panelists, that what is the effect of batch size, what is the effect of class size with regard to online classes. My own experience has been that going by the interaction that we have with so many schools, that yes, comparatively in online, it's easier to manage the batch size, etc. So I think these are a few things that I wanted to discuss. And in this very important topic, I eagerly look forward to hear from our esteemed panelists with regard to their perspective with regard to class size. I thank you all for giving me a patient hearing. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we do have a fantastic panel lined up for you today again. Before we go on to the panel discussion, a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook are an EdTech product. We create videos pertaining to the school curriculum that both teachers and students can have access to. Teachers can use these videos as part of their online or offline classes. Let's say you're starting with a topic. You might want to play this short 6 to 10 minute long video to give your students a more visual understanding of what you're about to teach. Later, the student at home has access to the same videos on their personal devices, which means that on the morning before an exam or to revise months later, they can watch the video that you had played in class at home on their personal devices and get a better idea, a visual understanding of the topic. What I'm going to do now is play you a short snippet of one of the Notebook videos so that you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about.
Shalini is the owner of Megawatt Electronics, the best electronic shopping store in Jalalabad. To make her store acquire the first position, she endeavors to sell quality products to her customers. For this, she buys only those products from the company distributors which has ISI mark on them as per the Bureau of Indian Standard Act 1986. Shalini carefully reads the label, quantity and price of each and every product and also weighs and measures the products so that she can sell products of good quality and standard to her customers. She purchased few refrigerators from the distributor of Lava Company. After the delivery of the products, she figured out that the refrigerator was defective and also there was no ISI mark on it. As she was aware of the Consumer Protection Act 1986, she went to the distributor and asked for the replacement of the product, but the distributor refused to replace the product. As a fully informed and knowledgeable consumer, she knew about the Trademark Act 1991. So she threatened the shopkeeper that she will file a case against the distributor of Lava Company if he denies replacement of the defective refrigerator. Eventually, the distributor, out of fear, agreed to replace the defective refrigerator. Thus, the Consumer Protection Act safeguarded Shalini against anti-consumer trade practices followed by the distributor of Lava Company.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you head on to our website www.notebook.school, you would find more than 10,000 such videos covering every topic from every subject of the CBSE curriculum. Well, now on to the job at hand. It is my privilege to introduce today's panel to you. We are very fortunate to have with us Mrs. Sadhna Jha, who is the principal of the Rosy Public School in Jalalabad. Mrs. Jha holds an MA and a BA in English and an MEd and a BEd. She has 1 year of experience when she started in 1985-86 at the St. Anthony Convent, Allahabad. She's had many decades of experience as a teacher. She's also had 5 years as the vice principal in Gyanasthali Senior Secondary Residential School in Karwa Khera, Etawah, 5 years as a senior academic head and HOD of English department in St. Vivekanand Senior Secondary Day-cum Residential Public School, Alampur Haus, Etawah, and she has attended English language teaching seminars organized by CBSE in Lucknow and Allahabad in 96-97 and 2006-7. She's also been the academic group head at the Gramodaya International College in Jhansi after being principal at the Jaipuriya School in Farrukhabad for 2 years. She has been the evaluator of CBSE board papers and has been appointed as a head examiner for various CBSE board papers. She attended the head examiners meeting at DPS Ghaziabad in 2009 and attended the principal seminar for effective teaching and implementation of CCE system in Kothari International School in 2010-11. She has been instrumental in giving 100% result in her school in classes 10 and 12. She's also been teaching various subjects, particularly English, and especially for the board classes. Ma'am, thank you so much for being a part of the panel today. It's a privilege to have you here. We also have with us Ms. Rupam Shah, who is a master's in organic chemistry from Bombay University. She is CSIR NET qualified and holds Cambridge International Diploma for Teachers and Trainers from Cambridge University. She is a certified program leader for the Cambridge International Certificate in Teaching and Learning and Educational Leadership. She has been associated with the field of education for the past 27 years, of which 9 years in the capacity of principal in reputed schools. She is the founder and CEO of EduLead International. She is a CBSE resource person and has till date trained over 15,000 teachers. She has also conducted principals leadership trainings for over 2,000 principals across the country. Her special achievements include a certificate by QMI as an authorized internal auditor, certificate by IIM Ahmedabad on effective and strategic leadership in schools, certificate by iDiscoverI in effective leadership in schools, certificate by Teachers Foundation Bangalore for quality circle time, and a certificate course in multiple intelligence by Branton Shearer. She is also a certified Art of Living teacher for conducting Know Your Child workshops. She has won numerous awards and recognitions such as the National Women's Excellency Award in 2011, constituted by the Ministry for Development of Northeastern Regions, the Radhakrishnan Award in 2010, constituted by the National Child and Women Development Trust, the Pratik Vidya Bhushan Award in 2004, and many more. As an educationist, she has constantly been endeavoring to enhance and upgrade the skill sets of students and teachers by organizing various workshops. Her powerful presentations on integrating life skills in school environment in the 15th National Sahodaya Conference of CBSE Schools Bhopal and on strengthening formative learning in the 17th National Sahodaya Conference of CBSE Schools Bangalore exemplify her incessant effort and work towards the cause of education. Ma'am, privileged to have you on the panel today. Looking forward to a wonderful discussion. I will start my video right now. Stop the share so that we can all start this discussion. Would request the panelists to also please switch on your cameras. Rupam ma'am, thank you so much for being here. Always a privilege to have you on the panel.
Thank you for having me here.
Our privilege, ma'am. Ma'am, if you may start with the first question. We are talking about class sizes today, and given your extensive experience, would you say, is there a thumb rule? As in, we know about the PTR considerations, but is there like a thumb rule that would fit all kinds of education because different schools follow different styles?
See, I wouldn't say that there is a thumb rule because, as you said, different schools follow different style, and that's absolutely correct. And it's not just that the different schools are following different styles. They are in different context. Their local context is also different. So say, for example, if I'm talking about a semi-urban school, right? So there, if you have shortage of teachers, shortage of competent teachers, then in that case, it is always better to have a experienced teacher teaching more number of students than a less experienced teacher teaching, less number of students. Because the student achievement or the student outcome definitely depends largely upon what is the teacher's competence. So, so that is one of the contexts. The other context could be monetary. It could be budgetary constraints which are there. The third aspect could be infrastructure. Because if we have, say, the small group of students in different sections, so the number of sections will increase. And if the number of sections increase, then they will be crowding over the common spaces like our laboratories and music rooms and the playgrounds and so, because the number of students are more. So obviously, we cannot say that there is a thumb rule. But having said that, there is an absolute importance for us to understand that what should be the cap. The cap has to be there. If we want, see, why are we discussing class size today? The reason we are discussing is that how is class size proportional to the student achievement? Is it that the class size in some aspect is critical towards the student's achievement? And as Achin mentioned, the case study which was done in Tennessee, and he said that by reduction of over, say, 30, it was approximately 32% of reduction in the student size, it was found that there is the kind of student achievement which is there is equivalent to 3 additional months of schooling. And that is a significant amount of achievement. But if we come back to our own country and we see that that's outside where you can still afford to have a smaller student population, there they are talking about, in Florida, if you see the pre-kindergarten, the size which is there is very less. It's around 18 students. And if you move on from class 4 to class 8, the student size is 22. If you move on to high school, the student size is 25. So, but if you compare here, according to what CBSE has said, that there has to be not more than 40 children which are there inside the class. CBSE also says that per section ratio should be 1.5 teachers. And that is something which has to be maintained. Now that cap is important. Now, why is it important? Because if we go beyond this, definitely what Philip was referring to, that the teacher is not able to move. The teacher is not able to go to the second bench also. How do you expect to reach out to the last one? How do you even expect that the teacher is going to carry out a group work and things, and there will be multiple resources? Obviously, what the teacher will resort to will be a chalk and talk. It will be more passive in nature. Now, if we want that the student achievement should be there, because the kind of education which is expected now is not something where content is important. It is where skill is important. And when we say skill is important, it becomes absolutely essential for the teacher to change the style of teaching. And the style of teaching should be such wherein the children are involved into peer learning. They are involved in collaboration. They are involved into critical thinking, exploring the things on their own. So I'm just talking about all the active means. And if you want to carry out this kind of an active learning inside the classroom, right now I'm only discussing about the physical classroom. We will discuss about the online a little later, but in the physical classroom, if this active learning teaching has to go on, then in that case, we definitely have to look into the class size. But only the reduction in class size will not lead to good education, because there are other factors also. So this is not the only variable which we need to look into. There are other factors, because if the class size is small, but the teacher is not competent, or the teacher is not aware, or there is a willingness issue, right? So then also you will find that the student achievement will not be there. If you see that if there are problems which are related to the curriculum is not very proper, it's not designed properly, the resources are not there. So you will find if the educational background of the students is something which matters. So the student achievement is not just dependent upon the class size. It is also dependent upon all of these factors. So therefore, we cannot say there is a thumb rule. It all depends upon, which school adopts what. But important factor which every school should consider is that every school should think about at the end, what do they want? They want results. They want results not in terms of grade, but results in terms of development of the students' skills. And if that is the focus, then even if the class size varies slightly here and there and the teacher's competence is high, you will find that finally it can be delivered. Like Achin also mentioned that in some states like Florida, Texas and Israel, there were mixed results. In Florida, in fact, there was hardly any difference which was seen. So it's not always that the class size makes so much of an impact on student achievement. Also, the research says one more thing, that when we are talking about the early years, in the early years, if we have less number of students, then the student achievement is better. But less number of students as we move up may not impact so much on the student achievement, because there is a lot of group learning which is taking place. So even if you have slightly more number of students, that will work. But a cap on every class size is absolutely important.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. In fact, when you said that, class size alone cannot determine the perfect learning outcome, I was just in my head thinking that over these last 1.5 years, we've had 122. This is the 123rd episode. And every time we just to, find out the topics that we want to discuss, we ask ourselves this question: which other factor would a school need to look at to enable the perfect teaching learning methodology? And we've had 123 so far, and we've not yet exhausted the list. So when you say that there are lots of factors, yes, there are indeed lots of factors. Thank you for that, ma'am. Sadhna ma'am, if I may come to you next, please. Sadhna ma'am, are you there? Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, I was asking you, what is the rule that you would follow in your school when it comes to class sizing?
Okay. Good. Class size is totally a different issue. As the world is changing, we have to accept what the world is saying, what the situation is saying. And according to the class size, what we are trying to say are the different issues in our life. Class size, it depends also. Like if we have a large class, but the most grievance fact, you can say that the teacher has to look after the class. If it's a huge class, means suppose a 40 or 45 number of students, the teacher has to look after, and it is really a pain for them to look after each and every. It is not, eye-to-eye touch by each and every single student. It is just the first row and understanding, or most perhaps the second row. The backbenchers are always behind. So class size, too much of big class size, perhaps it will not give effective results for everything. It is effective when the class is small. There is more better results being given by the students. As for example, when we are doing in online classes, even though there are many students who are not attending the online classes, but what happens, it is just blended learning. We are facing them. We are trying to understand them in each and in a proper way. And we are making them do the work, and they can see that the teacher's eye is on them. That means we are having a small classroom in a small screen, and by which we are able to control the students. It is very necessary in a small classroom. Huge classroom, of course, it's a big problem for the discipline. And as it has been said, that huge classroom, big classroom, it is just an issue of bringing a lot of, monetary system, increasing proper. But a small classroom means better results, better academic, and of course, discipline. A discipline has to be maintained by all. That is much more necessary. And by this, we are allowing we are giving opportunity to each and every individual to come together, to work together, and to understand what the teacher, if we take it in a past, long time before, It was the Guru Siksha, means we were all behaving all what the Guru was saying. But now we cannot say, of course, what is Guru. Now the teachers are more mentors, they're more facilitators in guiding each and every single child. So that the child can gain a proper education, can understand the speed, can understand the time, the mode, the language, what his mentor is trying to say, how he is trying to gain the education. So this can only be possible in a average classroom. So huge, and suppose huge classroom, it depends upon the the stock takers who will give huge classes, but means space. Space should be given so that with the space, the child is able to understand that in space and open environment, they're able to gain up a lot of things. And this understanding they will do in a different way. So I believe that small class in these 22 to 25, but it is actually true that in our surroundings, like my school is in a rural area, it is not possible for having 22 or 26 students. We have to take at least there are students like 35 to 40, and it becomes difficult for making each child understand to achieve the meaningful understanding. The teacher turns towards a board, and what happens, it is indiscipline. So it is for the teacher to move about. If it is a big classroom, there must be space so that the teacher's movement is there, and an eye contact as a teacher was doing in an online platform, by understanding their time, their learning method, by this giving them a flipped classroom, a blended learning, by bringing the traditional style also and bringing in a high-tech style also. So making a blended understanding, making the child understanding that education has not gone away. Education is here, and we have to accept the possibilities, the actualities of what the world is doing. We have accepted the high-tech understanding. So in this smaller classes, we are gaining a lot. If it's a big classroom, we have to give them space so that the learning, the activity can be done. So this is what I am trying to say.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Ma'am, if I may have a follow-up question, do you have like a number that if a section goes past, let's say 35 students, you cut it and make it another section? Is there like a number to that?
There's a number in the sense, of course, if 35 students to 40 students, if the space is there, we can keep 40 students over there in a class. With the space, if there is no space, of course, the 35 is divided into, means the class is divided into perhaps 20 to 17 or something like that. So that the teacher can gain properly, can understand, can interact each child in a proper way.
Right, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, if I may come to you next. I understand the space considerations in the physical classroom. Now, in today's world, you're online. On Sunday, we had the finals of the Notebook Ignite event that Achin was speaking about. We had 3,600 people attending one live event, which if it were to happen in a physical world, we would have had to rent out a stadium. Right? And here people are just sitting on a Zoom platform. With that, is the whole idea of class size going to be passé? Are people going to say that, okay, listen, it's much more flexible, you can join in any class you want and any number can work?
Okay. See, we have to understand that there is a difference when we are talking about teaching in an online, platform. So it may seem that, yes, you can manage a lot of students on an online thing because there is no need of any kind of a physical space and everybody is connected, everybody is listening to you, same facilities, same resources, and also with addition of so many tools, tech tools, the teacher can, simultaneously formatively assess, even if there are 100 children there outside, you can quickly get the results and see that how many have got it and how many have not got it. Okay. So till that place, it is fine. But if we have to, see that in continuation, a teacher has to teach a particular subject for the entire year, then in that case, it's not just teaching. Along with that, there are so many other factors which are related. Now, suppose if I have to, in the online class itself, I have to carry out a group work. Then in that case, I will, of course, break out my children into the breakout rooms and give them, some time to discuss in their groups. And as a facilitator, my job would be to visit each of the breakout rooms and see as to what is happening over there, facilitate them if it is required, right? Now, if the number of students are more, for me to put them into breakout rooms will take time. Secondly, to visit all the breakout rooms within that limited time will not be possible. And thirdly, to give opportunity to all these groups to speak is something which will not be possible. So there, when we are saying that, okay, participation of the students, live participation or active participation of the students, that becomes one of the issues. Though it could be a minor issue, but it is an issue. That's one. Secondly, if suppose I am a teacher of a particular class and I'm teaching a subject, and I have got 100 children who are there in the online class, and I've given them an assignment, which is kind of a subjective assignment, then in that case, I need to check those 100 things, right? 100 sheets. So the follow-up work for one particular teacher, which should have been otherwise in a physical setting, work of 2 teachers gets onto 1 person. And that's an additional thing. And I think Philip also mentioned this, that there is so much of load on the teachers, and this could become a legal issue. But that is happening. In a physical classroom, you can put too many children over there. But how much do you ensure the engagement? So when we have to conduct small sessions and workshops and webinars, we can have all the students there. But when it comes to teaching, there are other factors which needs to be considered. Now, suppose even if I'm talking about using an online tool like a Kialo, wherein you are having your online discussions. So it's a discussion board, it's a debating board, right? Or even if you're using a Flipgrid, then the children are putting up their work in the form of videos and things. But what is the teacher's role over there? The teacher is supposed to be seeing each and everybody's comments or each and everybody's video and then commenting or reflecting or giving feedback on it, right? So the teacher's work does not get reduced. If we increase the class size also in the blended mode as well, in the online, in blended, when we say blended learning, we are saying that there is synchronous teaching, asynchronous. Asynchronous, where we give away the things to the students and they're reading at their own pace and doing the work. Synchronous, when we are teaching each other in a face-to-face manner. So increasing the class size, even in an online platform or in the online teaching, to some extent, there are certain factors which will affect the student achievement, or it will affect the teachers, burnout, because there will be too much of work with so many students. So these are some of the critical factors which needs to be analyzed. Having said that, an online platform is a much better platform in terms of engaging the children simultaneously if the teacher is using the tech tools really properly. If the teacher is effective in an online class, the teacher can engage, more than 50 children in an effective manner as compared to in a physical classroom. So if I have to compare physical and online, I would say online is something where you can really engage the students well. But I also would like to tell you about what are the facts, what are the realities, because I've sat and done observation of many of the online classes of plenty of schools. And what is the reality? Reality is more than 70% of the children, they do not put their cameras on. So you do not know whether they are there or they are not there, right? Then most of the time the children will say internet issues, they do not want to participate. I'm not going to blame the children for this. It is basically upon the teacher. There are some teachers who can engage and children are more than willing to come up and, interact. In this, I would say, of course, there's a teacher's issue more than the student's issue. But the fact is that engagement in an online class, even now, is really dismal. I would not say that it's very encouraging as such, as per whatever I have observed in the online classes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. In fact, I have come across some very ingenious methods that students have used during online classes. My favorite, and I have discussed this before on this platform, is keeping the cameras off, renaming themselves to reconnecting ... So when you're looking at the screen, you're hearing reconnecting . I think that's absolute genius. Whoever came up with that idea.
Correct.
Ma'am, the online platform also lends itself to a different structuring, right? And if I may just be allowed to get really creative at this point, Imagine an online class where you have breakout rooms, right? You are specialized in organic chemistry. So let's say you're teaching chemical bonds, and the physics teacher is perhaps going to talk about crystal lattice. There's a maths teacher who's going to talk about certain aspects which also factor into these calculations, right? If they are in separate breakout rooms and you have a large group of people who move from room to room, understanding, because this is where you blend in different subjects as well. You take one core concept and teach multiple subjects with it. Do you think large format online classes can be used in this way as well?
I have to understand your question a little more in detail, because what you're saying is that there is an online setup where there are multiple teachers and the same set of students, and some students are working on chemistry, some are working on physics, some are working on the other subjects of their respective topics in their subjects, and they are put into different rooms? Or are you talking about an interdisciplinary kind of a thing wherein the same topic, say suppose it is chemistry is linked to physics, physics topic in some form, and it's the same thing which the groups are discussing in their breakout rooms, which is related to chemistry as well as physics? So I have to understand this before I comment, that whether it is pure chemistry, physics separately being discussed in breakout rooms, or it is a mixture of it.
I'm talking about the second one, where the interdisciplinary approach, where you have one central theme and the subject-wise breakouts of that central theme are taken care of by breakout rooms. Therefore, you don't have one teacher managing multiple breakout rooms with different teachers in each breakout rooms.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, I mean, that is, you're right. It's a very creative thought. And yes, and the teachers would be there. There are multiple teachers. And so it's going to be a very enriching kind of a discussion which will follow after it, because the children simultaneously will be able to see a chemistry perspective and a physics perspective of a particular thing simultaneously. And it's going to be enriching discussion. And of course, because there are more teachers, so it will become easier for them to distribute themselves into breakout rooms and then manage it properly. So yes, that is something which is possible also. But I don't know how much can it be workable for all the other topics, specifically when we are mentioning physics and chemistry. If suppose we are talking about the lower classes where we actually work on interdisciplinary things, say example primary, we take up a particular theme and there are various topics which are being simultaneously integrated toward that particular theme. So I think that is something which is easily workable and more enriching as well, when we have more teachers and the students simultaneously in the breakout. I think that's a brilliant idea, which is possible. Again, this has to be seen on the technical side of it, because I believe whether it is possible for many teachers to visit the breakout room which is hosted by one person. That is a technical thing which has to be still looked into. I'm not sure about it.
Ma'am, thank you so much for being so polite and calling this a creative idea. Let's call it what it was. It is a crazy idea, but I do admit that. Sadhna ma'am, if we may come to you next, ma'am. Ma'am, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, while you are having online classes, have you seen that there is a potential to increase the class size, or is class size not as big an issue? Or do you think it is an even bigger issue because now you're restricted to a certain screen size?
Actually, online classes are what? As ma'am had said, it is actually the students attend the class and their pictures are not shown. You never know that the students are attending the class or not. So online classes are actually fully not attainable by all the students, and it is totally different, like in a physical mode. In physical, like now the school has opened. Now the children, first of all, they were complaining about network issues and about not understanding anything, about their data being completed if the classes are going continuous. So that was all excuses. But now in physical presence, now the students are understanding that their physical presence in the school is much more necessary. So we are finding the students are now the students who are not attending online classes. They have come to their physical classes to show that yes, we are there, we are attending classes now physical. because they did not like the online classes. So such issues have come, like physical, like in our area, they prefer much more physical rather than online, like the issues of network and not understanding everything. Otherwise, online classes can be more energetic. But of course, for the teachers, it is very tiring to make the students understand, to let them hear, to make them work do. And it is all individual setup to make them everything understand. And there are certain students who will not open on the video also to show the picture. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Not understanding, ma'am. There's no issue. They are not going to reply. But now they will understand that physical is much more better for them, not online for them.
I would like to add something here. I have a slightly different experience. I have seen teachers, though mostly what Sadhna ma'am is saying is something which is correct, because that's the reality of the day. But simultaneously, there is another reality. There are some teachers who are brilliant in engaging their students, and their students will be more than happy to come to their class. They will be happy to switch on their cameras, participate things. So I think here the constant is the student. Students are constant. What is the variable is the teacher. So when we are saying that the students are not, coming on the camera, and then there are internet issues and things like that, I think most of it has to be done with the teacher's competence to engage the children online. If we are ourselves not very interesting, if we do not present our stuff in an interesting manner, if we do not engage them properly, then obviously anybody who is asked to sit online will not be feeling so much interested, and they will take an easy way out. So therefore, what is important is that we have to train our teachers to become more competent in dealing or conducting classes online. I can tell you there are schools, and I have observed that also, that class 1, class 2 children, they are so enthusiastic and they are responding on an online platform which is Nearpod, and the teachers are creating their entire lesson on Nearpod. There are PPT, there are different activities, and they are so enthusiastic, and each one of them independently, not even taking help of their parents. They have been trained so much that they are independently working, responding to the teachers, and then they are replying. So the whole class in perfect discipline with proper engagement, the children are learning. The teachers know exactly what is my learning objective, what is that which I need to achieve, and the students are responding to the teacher as desired. So the problem is not online. The problem is our own competence as teachers. So that needs to be increased. And if there is one more thing, we say that online is not effective. Tell me what was offline effective. If you observe the classes, the physical classroom also, most of the time we find that the teachers are actually not engaging the children. So those teachers who are engaging children in the class, in a physical class, will also be engaging them in the online class. So here I would say the maximum or the issue is basically of the teacher's competence to teach. It boils down completely on that. 80% depends upon the teacher, 20% on all the other factors.
All the other. Yes, it's true, ma'am. It is very true, ma'am. Actually, what happens that whatever the teacher, if the teachers are acting, accepting creativity, innovative from the students, so the teachers themselves should be creative. And this is much more true. The physical class, even in physical, the classes will be, whether you're teaching English or whether you're teaching maths, if you make it in a much more creative way, I don't think so. Even 40 students will be much more interested in understanding. So it depends upon the teacher's competency, that how they come forward and do their work. How are they creating, like eye to eye with every student, eye contact with every 40 students in the class, and trying to make them understand that what they are trying to catch them. So that is a competency, and it is true, and this can never be gone. This has to be understood, and every child will, of course, they will like to attend such classes. That is true, ma'am.
Right.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sadhna ma'am, if I may come to you with my last question. This is more to do with the rules and regulations that we live with in the world, right? We understand there is a subjectivity regarding what should be the ideal size of a class. And yet CBSE as a board or any statutory body for that matter would put some hard numbers out there saying that, okay, you can have only so many students or so many teachers per section, as we heard. Do you think it should be a statutory requirement, or should schools just have the freedom to do it like they want to?
No, CBSE has given some following the rules of that, the size of the classroom, having proper size with proper doors and proper ventilation, and with like every child, if I counting that means a teacher should be there, means every child has to be looked after, and everyone should follow. I think all the CBSE schools must follow such guidelines so that proper training, proper understanding to the students can be done. And it depends. Suppose there are suppose 3 or 4 students also. It depends upon the other classes. But the classroom size should not be more, like only 35 to 40 students should attend. 40 also, I'm saying more. 35 is much more better so that the interaction with the students can be done. The CBSE rule is exactly properly so that the gaining, so that understanding of the child, and if rooms are needed, perhaps if the management can have a room made, that is something different. But proper understanding so that the space is there, the child can move, and more understanding with the child can be done.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Rupam ma'am, I will come to you with the same question, but before that, we'll just take a couple of questions that we have on the panel. I believe we have answered most of them. I think this is an interesting one, how to engage students with special needs in online education. I know this is not pertinent directly to class size as such, but how does it impact when you have CWSN?
Okay. So, do you want me to answer that? Yeah.
Yes, please, ma'am.
Okay. For the students in the online, you're talking about the students with special needs, children with special needs. So first of all, we need to really understand what is the need, because depending upon the need, the solutions will be told. But in an online mode, and especially in the asynchronous mode, when we are saying that when we carry out blended learning, which means we give out our content to the children, at home, and then they are reading or viewing the content at their own pace. And when they come back to the class, then there is a discussion and things which happen and the queries are solved. Assimilation of knowledge takes place. So if suppose the teacher has created the content, or the teacher has created a video, or maybe the videos like you've created in your notebook, and that is the video which is shared with the students. So that in itself is a form of differentiated instructions. Reason being that if suppose I am a little slow at learning, I'm going to view this content number of times. I will see it till I understand. I can view it at my own time when I learn the best, maybe at the night or early in the morning or whatever is my best time of learning. I can learn it, relaxing on my bed and then seeing it. It's not necessary that I have to listen to the teacher. In a physical classroom, you have to listen at that time only. And if the teacher is speaking once, you have to grasp everything once. But with a video, that's the beauty of a flipped classroom. But with a video, you have the liberty of watching it as many number of times, and so that you understand it. So one of the need is addressed when we are providing the content to the children by in the form of videos, and nicely created videos. Again, the videos should also be something which are interesting. The teacher's voice has to be enthusiastic. There are visuals which are there. A small concept is taken. It's not a too long video. So if all of those things are taken care of, then you will find that most of the children will be able to understand the things. So I think flipped classroom, using flipped classroom more and more will be one of the things. Secondly, if there are children which have very little needs, special needs, but not very specific needs where you need special educators, then in that case, peer work or peer mentoring is something where you can, club 2 children together or a group of students while they are working. That will help. Thirdly, if the teacher can pay specific attention to what is the requirement of the student, and then create the right kind of assignments and assessments for them and provide them in an asynchronous mode and provide the support. These are the things which can be done with the students with special need. But again, it's a very general thing which I'm talking. It all depends upon what is the need of the child. And accordingly, the solutions have to be worked out.
Wonderful, ma'am. And now coming back to the original question, do you think with such statutory guidelines, are you stopping teachers from being innovative in their teaching methods, or are these necessary?
See, the statutory guidelines, if you see, CBSE has said that you need to have 40 children maximum in the class. There is the Right to Education Act, which says that 1:35 should be the ratio in the primary, and in the upper primary, sorry, 1:30 is the ratio in the primary, and upper primary 1:35. Right. So if you see these ratios, I think these ratios will not stop the teacher to be innovative. 40 children in the class are easily manageable if the teacher is innovative, because the teacher will design the activities in such a manner that all the 40 children will be engaged into the kind of work which the teacher is expecting the children to do. So whether the teacher creates the mixed ability groups or the ability groups, if the tasks are given in such a manner, 40 children are easily manageable, not a difficult task to do. So I don't think it is binding. But the upper cap is important, as I said, 40 children, but don't go beyond 40. And it completely depends upon the school. If you can afford more teachers, if you have better infrastructure, you can always reduce the size. If you reduce the size, of course, the student achievement will be much better, because then the teacher's time is not wasted much into classroom management, into looking after the discipline and things, and more time is invested on instructions. So reducing the class size will definitely lead to better student achievement. But I think the statutory requirement should be there, because if you don't put that statutory requirement, there will be schools which they are even going overboard even now. Even after the statutory requirement, that there are schools where there are more than 40 children sitting inside the classroom, and CBSE has taken action against, around 20,000 schools, where after you are filling the roles of class 9th and 10th, and where they've seen that significant number of students are there as compared to the number of sections. So even if the statutory requirements are there are violations which are taking place. So that has to be there. That should be there. But below that, you can always reduce the class size depending upon what management feels is suitable for their school and how much committed they are to the students' achievement.
Wonderful. We could do this discussion for many more hours, I guess, but thank you. Thank you so much. Because of paucity of time, we'll have to close this here. It's been an absolute privilege.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Subha. It was lovely, having a chat with you and everyone.
Wonderful
over here.
having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Achin,
it was very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes.
Achin, I will now invite you to do the formal vote of thanks. Over to you.
I think a wonderful session we had, and I really thank members of our esteemed panel for gracing the platform and for sharing their views. The best part of Together for Education webinar is we really want to encourage debate and discourse, holistic perspectives, and also perspective from all stakeholders. There are various ways of looking at a particular issue. And I think the strength of our great nation, the strength of democracy thrives on, public discourse. So I think really a wonderful session we had. Burrett sir, thank you so much for giving us a great start, for sharing your practical perspective. And I think each fact that you shared and the entire narrative, the way you look at it and the way you shared, I think it gave us a great foundation, great start. Thank you so much for that. Sadhna ma'am, thank you so much, ma'am, for your time, for being with us here today. I think
thank you so much, sir.
When you were speaking, ma'am, I could understand great amount of maturity and experience that was coming from each of your measured words. So I think, and also some great facts you mentioned. I think you're completely right, ma'am, when you say that every child has to be looked after. So one is, of course, the regulatory aspect, the legislations, what the state wants, what CBSE wants. That of course is very, very important. The other aspect which is equally important is the intent on the ground. So from senior educators like you who are leaders in their own field, so when you come up with a strong statement that yes, every child indeed needs to be looked after, not only in letter but also in spirit as well. And some great facts you mentioned, even with regard to the fact that yes, children need space to move. It's not only about academics, right? It's about the more holistic and wholesome upbringing. So I think, thank you. I think wonderfully you articulated and shared your views, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Rupam, ma'am, I thank you sincerely for sharing your views. I think very articulate and nice examples you shared. So, because at the end of the day, it's also about, because we have so many educators in this forum, senior educators, etc. And this being a thought-sharing platform, I always tell this to our esteemed educators, this platform belongs to you. Maybe we at Notebook are hosting it, but this truly is your platform and we want you to come and share your views. Right? We may choose to agree or disagree, but that's not the point. The point is that we need to be mature in order to appreciate each other's perspectives. So I think some great examples. Yes, ma'am, I completely agree with you with regard to online, the whole advantage factor with regard to 24/7 access, and also certain other aspects that they give so much importance to, be it in terms of value for a student's time, making your content very brief and crisp. I think beauty lies in editing. Be it building on the engagement factor, which is so important, building the curiosity factor, rest naturally it follows. And of course, something for everyone. The objective is not only to create toppers, but each child is uniquely talented. And at Notebook, we really believe that there's nothing called, absolutely, we believe every child is equally gifted and equally talented. I think when a child doesn't do well, it's not that the child fails, but the entire system fails if we are not able to engage him or her. So I think that is the mission. And I'm sure with support from all stakeholders like you, senior educators, etc. So we will make this happen. So really wonderful session. I thank members of the esteemed audience for their support. And really after a week, it's great to be back with Together for Education webinar. And we look forward to your support in the episodes to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Achin.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.